Hello guys, so this video will be my continuation of my previous video about DNA. So a lot of diseases, especially complex chronic diseases which are hard to treat, are explained with this tiny -9 degrees size DNA stuff that they know every chain of, that's so tiny they need an electron microscope to view it, but at the same time it's as big as a male human. So try to have these two opposite definitions simultaneously in your brain so that you go damn crazy. But nevertheless, I'd like to say that all these diseases that I call chronic, complex, quote-unquote hereditary are really come from either heavy metals or organophosphates. So heavy metals are, in my opinion, blood poison of poisonous creatures like reptiles and insects like tarantula, and for example mercury most likely comes from blood or period blood of bats. These type of animals like bats, etc., and you can include also whales in there, they have what is called echolocation. So echolocation is what provides an animal with ability to orient themselves, and this is how you can hear through your skin. That's basically a factor. So when it comes to diseases, we often address organs like brains or heart, but we never talk about skin, although skin is the biggest organ in the human body and it covers all. So anyways, these disgusting creatures who control the science community and medical community and all the research processes which they need to control so that people would die, and the way that they poison people will never be busted. These creatures, they make sure that nothing is done ever. So they invented this fake DNA model to distract and set people on the wrong goal, while at the same time they know, and between themselves they secretly advertise to each other this layer of the skin called interstitium, and how they can have these micro needles to insert the drug, or more exactly donor's blood or antidote in this interstitium layer under your skin very conveniently. So basically, when they looked at the species like bats, how they operate, and this is how their blood works. They There is this stuff called oxygen. I assume that oxygen is really light. And this goes back to what is called the ether, and also how they fucked up the periodic tables of chemical elements by Mendeleev, who built it with ether on the top. So they just erased this ether from the memory and from science books, and they also introduced this Albert Einstein and his theory of relativity and all these particles vs waves and Schrödinger cat and all other fancy magic trick stuff that they try to distract you with. And it's like hocus pocus, basically. That's what they say about themselves. So in between themselves, they discuss all this interstitium, this skin layer, and in between themselves, in their covert metaphorical language, they talk about how they poison people and how effective it is. So when they observed these animals who have echolocation like bats, they basically invented a radar. A radar is what they invented first of all. And that radar, of course, was used in military technology. And only then that it was released, and then it was advanced to a point of, iPads and computers and so on and so forth. And if you check on YouTube, if you put in the search engine on YouTube, for example, mercury from bat's blood, or mercury from old radio. So this is basically how you can transfer image, sound through the distance. That's how far it can get. And so when it comes to heavy metals, it's, in my opinion, is basically blood or some poison or hormonal excretion of these exotic species, animals and insects. And when it comes to organophosphates, and this is the second type of poison that they can poison you with. This is, I think, is a bone. So they take bones and they turn it into powder. And just like they do with the wheat, they turn the wheat, the seeds into a flour. The same they do with the bones. And bones have these majestic properties to them. They also transfer the sound, and basically bones are what we deal with when it comes to this graveyard magic and what it does to a corpse and so on and so forth, and why they are so obsessed with skull and bones and stuff like that. They also say that what would be dangerous when the nuclear bomb is thrown, or any other type of bomb, not how much the heavy metals in it will damage you, but how it will unpack all the graves and how toxic it will become. once these materials will leak into the air. So in any case, you can try to clean up these heavy metals that cause cancer and other such diseases, difficult to treat, with zeolite, clinoptilolite, plus NaC, acetylcysteine, which is basically the structure that is dimercaprol, which is used to clean out heavy metals intravenously, but NaC is something you take in a pill form, so that you can take it orally. So you don't have to have this hospital environment or a nurse who will inject you intravenously to help you get rid of this. So, and when it comes to organophosphates, it's very difficult to clean them up. It's almost impossible. Once they get into you, it's so damn toxic. They make these nerve agents that they use in the military time on people. And that's what they use in the pesticides with. So when it comes to organophosphates, it's really, really fucked up and dangerous. And I know only one medicine, a drug that extracts this organophosphate that helps to heal this organophosphate. So organophosphates is also cancerogenic and causes other diseases of nerves, that kills your brain, kills your neuron function. So basically this thing called fontoracetam is an antidote to organophosphates, and that's how it helps. So I know of it. It is only sold in Russia, this fontoracetam stuff, or phenylpiracetam, and it's the only thing that I found that helped. Because for example, when they want to really secretly poison somebody, they just use several factors. They use what is called a compound, a combination of two elements, and preferably so that they would interact with each other. Anyways, when it comes to organophosphates, what they do is they say that they use these pesticides to control pestilence. So they say that we use a pesticide which is basically organophosphate, and they say, you know, we use it to kill off insects, and we use it to kill off, for example, rodents or whoever. And while really they use organophosphates as a pesticide to shorten the lifespan and to cull the population. So, for example, they write all these scientific papers about birds or what is called pollinators, like butterflies, moths, and bees. And they say, for example, they have this graph, and they say, well, this moth or this butterfly got treated with pesticide, the organophosphate, and its flight span got shorter by 30%. But it's really like some quote-unquote Royal Society of some scientific institution or Cambridge University or Oxford something, or like it can be any country, but it's basically them British MI6 morphos who are doing this. So they have this graph saying like, and the flight of a butterfly or the flight of the moth was reduced, the span of it by 30%, and it became less fertile by 40%. And they are kind of bragging about it to each other metaphorically, because you can extrapolate with a percentile, so with a percent of the flight of this butterfly is basically the percent in which your life will be shortened, and they don't have to pay you a pension, like you have to pay tax all your life so that you will be paid pension, but indeed you will not live to see your pension, or you will not reproduce. So, and this is a very cunning way in which they kill off people, make them develop cancer, and then they say it's your fault because you carry this in your seed or in your ovaries. It's your fault because you have this in your blood, in your DNA, okay? It's not something we do to you. It's your inheritable disease. You passed it on, okay? So if your child dies, it's because you passed it on, okay, in your blood, okay? So don't blame them. Don't blame them. Although they deliver all kinds of speeches like Boris Johnson, that only he and his father are brave enough to address overpopulation issue. And they talk about all the time in their Daily Mail, New York Times articles, how everything is overpopulated and how they create this immigration crisis. Like they say, so many hundreds of thousands people enter, and so on and so forth, so that people would think, and they create these traffic jams artificially when it all can be managed, to have this idea in your head that something is overpopulated, and they disrupted all these delivery chains so that there will be this hunger problem or shortages of wheat, all by design, all on purpose. But when it comes to all these insects and birds and other what is called pollinators, it's a very complicated mechanism in which flowers get pollinated. And by the way, there are videos on Vion or other YouTube channels that clearly show that they make this vaccine was made from one of these moth ingredients. So what they do, the butterflies are not only attracted to color of the flower, the butterfly are also attracted by the smell. And what is smell? It's some hormonal function. So they feed on this nectar, and they use this nectar from the flower as a fuel. And they process it through their body, and they spread it with their wings, so that through the wings they like sweat it or something like that. So they turn this poison, which is on the flower, etc., to microdust. What they do is basically they mix the poison with hormones. So they incorporate the poison organophosphates into their into their hormonal system, and then they excrete it in the form of microdusts as well. So basically, we people have similar hormonal structure as them. And when you think about hormones, it's like smell. Like when you sweat out hormones as well. Your bodily fluids, they excrete hormones. And this is just a smell, okay? So this is how it is. This is how it is. It's in form of ether. Ether. In form of ether. And this is very tricky. And this makes it a perfect murder. Because you can never prove that something that they poisoned with pesticides, because a butterfly or bee or intermediate animal or insect have run it through their system. They created a compound which made the poison to be their integral part of the hormones. And you will catch it. You will catch this poison in a form of a smell or in a form of magnetic field. So that for them it would be like a perfect murder. And they will tell you they just care about you, so that your food will not be eaten by insects, or you won't have worms in your apple, or something like that. They will tell you. That's why they use this organophosphate pesticide, although it's a nerve agent which they use at war. So this is a tricky stuff, and this is perfect murder, because how are you going to prove that your cancer is related to a pesticide organophosphate? Okay? That's what it is.